Former South African President Jacob Zuma is currently addressing mourners at the late Agriculture MEC Joyce Mashamba's funeral in Malamulele in Limpopo. Let's now cross live there.
In our country, Comrade Joyce saw it all in the course of the struggle. One of the speakers said, Comrade George Mashamba and Comrade Joyce left for Swaziland. They came back changed. If my memory serves me well, it was in December 1975. It was the time I met this outstanding family for the first time. I believe that the person they knew in Swaziland, perhaps the person they made contact with, was Comrade Zuma, who worked at the university as a librarian. At that time, Comrade Thabo Mbeki, who finally became the president in a free South Africa, Comrade Albert Lomo, and myself, we were in Swaziland servicing the structures of the movement inside the country. This family came and they had the luggage, which was their luggage to take them wherever they would be going. They wanted to go out of the country to sharpen their instruments of fighting the apartheid system. They were very angry revolutionaries, ready for anything. Of course, our job in Swaziland was to meet comrades and organize comrades inside the country and assess their situation, their exposure, their discipline, their understanding of the struggle. And we engaged these two comrades. And indeed, when we assessed their security situation, we thought it was too early for them to leave the country. The threat was not that high. But also they were working at a very strategic area, well placed for recruiting, for building the organization inside the country. When we weighed the options, we certainly concluded that it was too early for them to leave the country. They would make a bigger contribution inside the country. Perhaps when the threat will be more, we could then arrange for them to leave the country. But first, we believed they needed to organize the African National Congress inside the country, particularly because the then Northern Transvaal to us was a critical area given its location in the country. and we engaged the comrades very seriously. We had intense discussions, fortunately, with comrades who were quicker to understand the critical elements of the struggle. It did not take us a long time. They agreed that the logic of our argument for them to come back was correct. And they were ready to take the instructions from the organizations. We then engaged these comrades about a more properly organized underground work and the kind of level of discipline that you needed. And they were fitting to this particular element that you need in a revolutionary. No wonder they came back changed. They were no longer talkative, they were quiet. Because the more serious area of work had been understood very well. That if you are to succeed in the underground work, people must not know what you are doing. Only you and those of your comrades you work with underground should know. And of course, we engage in the preparations, particularly because these two comrades were placed very strategically in this very vital part of our country. We were in a hurry, but that you could not see, because we wanted freedom now. But we knew that you cannot be rowdy and noisy if you want freedom now. Because it was no longer just organizing for political structures only, but also to prepare for the military confrontation with the enemy. These comrades came back and indeed worked hard to organize other comrades. And of course, the struggle is not fought at one level. The underground has to be protected by the struggle above board of those who must protest and do every other thing, at times that serves to protect the underground. And yet, there are very specified ways where the underground protects the above ground, because they ought to have a kind of character of the cutting edge of the struggle. They can take action that the general active mass might not undertake. So they become the fountain, the source of the real struggle. They create and influence the cadres. And we're doing this to a number of areas of the country. But we're so happy with this family. And indeed, both did not disappoint us. They came in, they organized, they wept. They changed the mood and the nature of the then Northern Transvaal. Later, we were able to penetrate or infiltrate MK cadres to this area. And indeed influence the young people. Here emerged the warriors, young comrades that were able to take out for a short while and train, and before people realized they were out of the country, to infiltrate them back. I think the only one cadre who was a good cadre, who gave us trouble, was Peter Mkaba. Peter Mkaba feared nothing. When he was out for the time he went for training, he read every book that he came across and asked all the questions. And we were suspecting this man won't stay long in underground because he wanted to handle things himself. And there was a man who came from the black consciousness in this province, whose name I'm forgetting, who was criticizing the ANC. Mkaba emerged from the underground and went to threaten this man. And we got a report, and we said, yeah, how can he expose himself? But that was Peter Mkaba, ready to be free today, part of the product that had come from, among others, the coming back of these two comrades who influenced, not just by saying join the organization, but by helping them politically to understand the oppression more thoroughly and to be more angry to fight for freedom. Comrade Joyce distinguished herself very well. Whilst a good wife, a good family key point, but at the same time, very brave. I think influenced Comrade Joyce Mashamba to some degree to tone down, because Comrade George loves debating. But I think she was able to say, Hambagahle, people must not see us. And that's why even to their close neighbor, they were a changed family. No longer talking, just behaving, just doing things properly. And that's why they succeeded to do such work, including helping the young people who went out and came back to fight, and they became part of it. When we established the structures after the liberation of Mozambique, we had the structure, political structure and the military structure tailored for the regions. And there was one for the rural Transvaal and the urban Transvaal. It was the work that was given to these comrades that finally led to their arrest under the notorious act that made many to go to prison. Comrade Joyce and Mashamba proved to be the real cadres of this movement. They became respected not just by activists or the youth, but also by MK cadres. They made a contribution that perhaps many of us have not succeeded to make, and I think the description given by one of the speakers here, how they shook the area, will tell you these were the revolutionaries. Comrade Joyce, a member of the African National Congress, an organization she came to understand very well, its values and its determination to liberate this country. And she became part of those. She was arrested, tried, leaving aside young children. Not many women could go through what she did, leaving young children, because she was ready not to sell out, but to keep the secrets of the organization, to suffer, to go and serve for 5 years for her organization and the people of this country, and have her children growing for 5 years without her. Yesterday, we were at their house in Polokwane. 2 comrades I was sitting with, they were remembering how much that house was left without anyone, and how much that house was used as an operational base. And Joyce, when she came out of prison, she was more determined, perhaps, than when she went in. She represents a particular category of women who were involved in the struggle, who went through the underground participation, who went to prison, came out, continued to work, and became an example of how women could participate in the struggle. Literally dealt with the notion that women are weak, they cannot do what men can do. She did more what many men could not do as a woman. She was an outstanding example of the ANC woman. She understood the ANC, highly disciplined, even during the time when she served in government, focused, quiet, doing her job. I had a lot of work to do with her, even when she was an MEC here, because she had come to internalize many things that are important in the struggle. She always produced reports that did not need the executive nor the PEC, but that needed the leadership to know what is happening, because she was very good in distinguishing between the wrong and the right, and therefore kept us informed of the happenings in the province. She at times criticized the intelligence comrades because she felt at times they were careless. And nobody ever suspected she did other things that other people did not know. A perfect comrade, a perfect revolutionary. Joined this organization when it was not fashionable to be an ANC. because it was dangerous. She went through the danger and tested the bitterness of it. A comrade indeed that you could trust at all material times, whether she was with you or she was operating somewhere else. You were confident that everything is safe, is correct, is being done properly. But again, she became the member of the South African Communist Party. And she has been until her time to depart from us. Gained an understanding that many do not. The South African Communist Party's legacy in this country has been its cadres who are highly disciplined, who calculate, because the party in our country was given a very serious task to play a leadership role which is not visible. And that would be done because you look at the behavior of the cadre. And she was a glaring example. Quiet, never quarrel with anyone. Able to lead with dignity. Able to exercise her political knowledge, not by creating enemies, but as a task of the party to attract people into it or into the ANC or the workers' organizations. A glaring example of what a communist should be. She understood this in an amazing way. Only when you have a discussion with her, you will realize the depth of knowledge and understanding. She was never in any controversy that I know of, whether in the organization or in the party or in government. She has been a glaring example of a cadre. She understood her task as a communist, that her task was to change society for the better, to liberate the workers and oppressed from the clashes of capitalism. She was not taken up by interests that developed. She understood the class contradictions. I had a discussion with her one day, not once, but one day we had time. And we were discussing our observation of where we are in our struggle. That what people have read and trained politically, they can't see it when it happens. That after the national liberation, there will come a time where the struggle will no longer be a national struggle, but will be a class struggle. And what troubles the movements today is the emergence of class interests that we want to shy away from. And she did not, and she understood. And if you wanted to understand what troubles us today, among other elements, it is the class contradictions that have emerged disguised in many, many shades. She understood this. She understood this. And unfortunately in life, those who are clear, those who have a contribution to make, a constructive contribution rather, they normally don't have the longer time to share this with us. They leave us so early. We discussed with her how to get out of this encirclement. It does need men and women of special make. You have enemies who were your comrades yesterday. There is nothing strange in South Africa. It is a principle of how society develops and of how contradictions are. She understood this very well. That's the reason why she earned respect within the ranks of the ANC and of the Communist Party. There are many, many things we had time to talk about. Comrade Joyce needed to be honored, needed to be remembered. However, she played a part, like many. She completed her time. And we are saying today, farewell, Comrade Joyce. We have done your task. We have given an example of how a communist and an ANC member should be. When you were given time to lead, you led. When you were given time to be led, you were a willing follower. But at the core of it all, you knew what we needed to do to complete our freedom. Samaya handle sikwangwetla me waneti. Go well, soldier of our struggle. Go well, mother among mothers. Go well, comrade. Today, we are here to say to you, you have done your job. You have completed your task. It remains with us. Some of the issues we discussed as to what we need to do to get out of this encirclement, we will find a way to implement them. Thank you very much indeed.
That was the former President Jacob Zuma addressing mourners